It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belghast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 395. Tonight I'm joined by Ammo.
Hello.
Ashgar.
That's almost 400.
Grace.
Hi.
Tam.
Hello.
And Thalen.
Hi there.
It is almost 400. It's a big
It's going
number.
to be almost 400 for the next 4 weeks.
Yep, it will be. It's been actually almost 400 for a while. It does seem weird that we've almost recorded 400 of these. If we have any technical difficulties, I'm going to blame it on a tiny kitten that is coming in and out of my office from time to time. She is very small, and she wants attention, and she likes walking on keyboards. So,
Yay, kitty help.
yeah. It has been a very long time since I've had a very small kitten, and the places they can get into is interesting.
I mean, I have a much larger cat, and I am surprised at the places a cat can get into.
Cats are mostly liquid.
Yep.
So there's a topic that we're probably going to spend a lot of time on, and we have some other topics, so we're going to talk about the other topics first. Rimworld.
Yeah, I mean, today is the old games that we're only just recently picking up show.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, but like
That's what it's going to be today.
yeah. But yeah, I've had people telling me I should play Rimworld for like honestly an embarrassing amount of time at this point. And I like basically procedural survival sim kinds of games. I've definitely put a lot of time into it. Specifically, I've put, if I can find it, a lot.
Over the past, 2 weeks, right?
Oh God, like 30 hours over the last 2 weeks. Anyway, I'm sad I looked at that number. But it's probably, if you're listening, you're like, yes, I've heard of this game. If you haven't, the idea is you drop onto a somewhat inhospitable planet with some basic resources, and you need to build a functional surviving colony, and it has like SimCity style random things that can happen to you.
Almost all of them bad. I mean, wait.
Most of them bad, but also many of them offering interesting opportunities.
Yeah.
Which I think is
I mean,
really,
if everything went smoothly, it definitely wouldn't be the game it is.
right. But also things can go poorly. Things can go poorly in ways that are not like, well, I guess I'm done, catastrophic. And I really like that in games, just generally. Like I'm so used to like you roll into a game and you either learn to play it and win all the time, or win 80-90% of the time, or you are still learning how to play it and die a lot. And there's not, and I talked about this with Crusader Kings 3, which has a similar kind of thing that I really enjoy. Rimworld is a lot more approachable than Crusader Kings 3, but hits a lot of those same notes that I really like. It's like, oh, this thing went poorly, but not only is it recoverable, it kind of adds to the story in an interesting way. And like to use an example, I had a group of survivors. I had one big burly guy who was my wood chopper and miner and like just general defender, who was married with my like precision sniper survivor. And they had this like great thing going on. They were like absolutely top tier defenders of the whenever like raiders would come in, and they were continually keeping each other happy and everybody else happy. And but also like they were getting into fights all the time. Like they were getting into like actual combat all the time, which is not safe. And eventually one of them took a nasty hit and didn't recover and died. And like I have played games where, oh, this character dying is like, I'm done. Like that was too valuable a character and I'm done. But I had other people, and it was kind of like, well, I'm going to keep on keeping on, because the result of that raid was also I managed to free a bunch of people, and now I have like four new colonists. So I had like a much bigger group, which was really, really helpful. So it's like, all right, I lost one person who was really valuable, but I got four more. Maybe we'll continue going on. But like, also the person who just lost their partner is like super sad about it, and also doesn't like openly dislike some of the people that I recruited, because it was their raid that got his partner killed. And so it became this interesting thing where it was like, okay, this person is now mad all the time and causing all kinds of problems, because when people are unhappy, they sometimes take it out on either other people or the environment around them, or just like F off and won't do work or whatever.
The tantrum spiral.
Yeah. Well, and this person just wanted to get into fights all the time. And so it was like, all right, well, everything is ticking along relatively nicely. How do I make this person feel better? Or how do I help this person feel better? It turns out I ended up needing somebody to go on like dangerous away missions. And initially, because I'm a heartless bastard, I was like, all right, well, this person being around is a problem. I will send them on these away missions with some essentially red shirts, just to get them away.
And maybe they don't come back.
Yeah, it's
shame.
Like, it would be, I mean, like, I would be sad to lose them, but also like they're causing a lot of problems and they can be useful. Well, it turns out their first like 2 forays were the perfect opportunity for them to vent with incredible violence. And not only that, one of the people who was the result of the raid saved their lives and brought them back. And so this character went from being like, happy, peaceful logger to like strike team commander, literally having his life saved by the person who was responsible for killing his partner. They became super close and like are both a little unhinged, but also go out on on incredibly dangerous away missions, and they come back like gigantic heroes, and then they're happy for a while. And like, yeah, of course it means that I have to keep on finding dangerous away missions to send them on, but they really enjoy it. It's like, that's a whole arc. Because like previously I'd had the problem where nobody was happy when they went on an away mission. They always came back like super depressed. And so it was like, okay, now I've got a group of people that are actually really excited about it as a result of this like tragedy that occurred. It's just sort of like interesting. It makes for like interesting stories and tapestries.
Mm-hmm.
In another much more ignominious case, I had a character who was just an unbelievably charismatic like diplomat character who was just incredibly useful because they were so good at it that they could basically convince anybody to join us in like nothing flat. And so we had this really peaceful, like really large, like reasonably large community. And we were really, really good at recruiting, doctors and other highly skilled people, which can be hard to do. And then some kind of fatal STD showed up.
Oh no.
And the medical team was like, this person needs to be quarantined until this all blows over. And it's like, okay, sure. The problem is that this person was too charismatic, just too seductive for even the medical staff to be able to be like, nope, we're going to keep you in quarantine. Like, kept getting out of quarantine with the help of somebody else. And eventually the entire group of people got the same STD and died.
Oh.
And
well,
yeah.
Wow.
So that was a much more ignominious end for this group of people. But part of what I really like about it is it has an incredibly detailed, how do you want to play this series of settings. It's like, hey, here's like 4 different storytellers, where the storyteller is like the AI that's making decisions about what kinds of random events happen. And then how intense do you want these storytellers to be? So it's like, oh, hey, do you want somebody who's like who really likes good pacing and is going to like sometimes even artificially pace things such that you have an interesting time all the time? Do you want somebody who's mostly just going to like lay back and let you build up, but then hit you with really big things much more rarely? Do you want something capricious and random? You know, and then, like I said, it's like 7 or 8 difficulty settings for each one. And they're not even entirely difficulty settings. They're also tweaking what kinds of events you want. Like, oh, do you want to be like more of a community builder? Or do you want to be like a super survivalist? Or do you want to fight a whole lot? And so it's really interesting seeing how it all connects. I don't know. It's been a lot of fun. Good story. It's a good story generation game, but also it's a story generation game that isn't completely obtuse, which is hard to find.
So yeah, like Dwarf Fortress.
Yeah,
because that's basically I've seen people talk about playing Rimworld and the things that have happened. I was like, oh, that sounds kind of like Dwarf Fortress. That like Dwarf Fortress with a UI.
Yeah,
that actually
they're working on it.
Wants players to be able to play it.
I gotta admit, like, the thing that has kept me away from the game is I really hate the art style. But like, I've had a bunch of blogger friends that have gone down this rabbit hole, and it has generated not just weeks of content, but months of content as they wrote about their colonies.
Oh yeah, like there is a lot. I haven't even really scratched the surface on the things you can do. And yeah, like the art style is definitely like, hope you like the art style because that's the art style. But
yeah, I even looked in to see if like anybody made any third-party packs that you can install.
I mean, yes, but they all use that same art style.
Yeah.
Yeah. But considering that it's competing against games that don't have an art style.
I mean, ASCII text is kind of an art style.
No, ASCII text is not an art style. Dwarf Fortress is going to get an art style kind of soon, but well, eventually. It's going to eventually get an art style. It has an art style in progress.
But yeah, I also just kind of enjoy the sort of the random start generator, because different people, like there's a bunch, everybody you start with come with different skills, and you can have just some absolute disaster people as your starting group, or you could have like a crack team of competent people, and like both of these are interesting. And it's usually very hard to not have some kind of gap in what your people are good at. And so it's like, how do you work around that? Whoops, no one can cook.
Oops.
But we've got a great doctor. So everyone's got food poisoning all the time, but they recover quickly. Anyway, it's a very funny time, and definitely worth at least a spin.
What is Wolfstride?
Wolfstride is a game that I have been following for quite some time, from when I was like looking at mecha games a while back. Because I was like, somebody's got to have made a mecha game, like a mecha game, with like an anime art style, and a anime theme to it, versus like, more Gundam,
less BattleTech.
Yeah, exactly. And Wolfstride was one of those things that popped up on my radar when I was looking for that. But it is not I mean, I put it on my wish list. I finally realized that it came out because it was on sale for the summer sale. But what I was not prepared for is how far it's leaning into its aesthetic. The entire game is black and white, which is a choice to begin with. But it is about as 90s anime as anything I've ever seen, including 90s anime.
That combined with black and white is a definite choice.
Oh yeah. Like, yes. You're playing as your character is, you're a really tall, skinny dude with the 2 huge triangle sunglasses and a giant collar, who is smoking a cigarette all the time. It's got big Gundam robots fighting each other in a turn-based RPG combat. There's a bunch of talking animals for reasons that the game doesn't even bother to explain. It's just like, yeah, this is your like mechanic. He's a dog.
I mean, okay.
Just a talking dog. I mean, what of it?
I mean, randomly having cat ears is a very 90s anime thing.
It's true.
Yep. Well, and there's a bit of randomly having cat ears, but it's also like there's just actually a talking dog here. The mechs all have like ridiculously over the top names. Like the mech that you're the manager for is called Knife Leopard. It's some dude it's like this shirtless, the pilot is this shirtless dude in a cowboy hat that everybody calls Pineapples. Like, he's got an actual name, but that's not what anybody calls him.
Okay.
The dog refers to my character as Catman all the time, and I'm pretty sure it's derogatory, but it's hard to tell. And it's just bonkers, but I haven't been able to stop playing it because it is also a drama in the way like Trigun is. Like, I would never recommend somebody watch Trigun for the gunfights, for example. And this game is kind of the same way. Like, yes, there are mecha fights, and they're pretty cool, and they're actually fairly mechanically interesting once you get into the various systems. And then also, it's like you run around and talk to people and, you know, solve puzzles and so forth. It's like point and click adventure, except that it's not entirely point and click. It's you can use a controller, but it's like point and click adventure meets mecha turn-based combat RPG in the most overwhelmingly 90s anime aesthetic, down to like the music. Why is it called Wolfstride? I have no idea.
Because somebody thought it was cool.
Like, it's equal parts deadly serious and goofy. There's a washing cats mini game. You wash cats for somebody who may or may not be a witch. It's hard to tell.
Okay.
Yeah, like, it's just a whole thing. And I haven't beaten it yet, but I almost certainly will, because I want to know where this is going. Because there's also like the mech fights are all like it's like a fighting tournament anime structure, complete with, you know, impenetrable narration, like start of chapter impenetrable narration from like the main cast's dead friend or something. Yeah.
You are definitely selling this whole 90s anime thing.
Like, it is truly all in on its aesthetic in every way. But it's pretty fun. I think that my only real complaint with it is you need money to fix up the mech, and getting the money you need to fix up the mech starts out kind of tedious. Like, you just don't make very much doing odd jobs, which is mostly like playing paperboy / digging up treasure in digging up junk in a scrapyard that might be worth something. And eventually you get to the point where you can actually make decent money doing that, and you only have to do a couple of cycles, and may not even need to do that because you're making enough money on mech fights. But at first I was like, wow, I really feel like I'm grinding out this, you know, bike mini game to make enough money to feel like I'm fully ready for this fight. And then I get to the point where I'm like, oh no, I can finish out fights at pretty much full health, so I don't actually need to spend a bunch of time doing that. But it took a bit. That was about my only. Thus far, that's my only complaint. Also, very good, again, extremely over the top voice acting. I would say borderline overacted, but also, again, 90s anime.
Sure.
But yes, Wolfstride. Try it if you want a completely wild ride.
So, what is the Star Citizen's Guide system?
It was a mistake. They fixed it.
Well, so
it was a good idea implemented badly.
Yes. So Star Citizen is having a free fly again, which they do every few months. And this free fly is meant to boost the guide system, which has been around for quite some time. It's just not very well advertised. And their festival is what Star Citizen has is a tutorial problem.
A little bit.
It is a very difficult game to get into, especially because it's changing a lot. So, you know, what might be the best way to get into it, one patch might change the next patch. And to some extent, the game understands this. Like, The developers understand this. They have a shockingly developed system for crowdsourcing their tutorial. It's the guide system. Basically, if you know a part or multiple parts of the game and you're willing to teach other players, you can sign up to be a guide, and other players can be like, hey, I want to learn about this game. I want to learn how to be a better whatever, or just anything about the game. And they can go look and see, hey, are there any guides who are online right now who are interested in, teaching me the stuff that I want to do or show me the ropes? And if so, they can basically say, hey, I'm interested in being taught. And the guide says, yep, okay. And it's I haven't seen exactly the mechanics of the system because I've never used it, but basically it connects you with that person in game so that you can meet up and show them what's going on about whatever it is they were looking to learn, which is a really interesting system. And I would normally be very cynical about it, except every report is that it's great. Like to the point where veteran players specifically recommend, hey, go be part of the guide system. Like go use the guide system and get somebody to show you the ropes, because they'll know what most of the time, if somebody's playing the game regularly enough to be a guide, they can explain it, whatever the most recent patch is. So there isn't any like operational overhead in updating the tutorial or whatever, which is really
people.
Is what?
You just need live people.
Yeah, you just need live people. But like most of the time, that's not actually a problem, because it's a relatively the relatively small population. There's plenty of people who are interested in showing other people the ropes. But also this recent festival and the mistake was they were like, okay, we've learned from stuff like FF14 where they give you a little reward for helping new players out, and FF14 doesn't do it. It's not like, hey, commendations are great, but hey, here's the the mentor roulette or whatever. And this is sort of taking that a step further. They're also like, we're going to put some actually fairly tasty rewards on it.
I can't see this going horribly wrong.
Well, they also have surprisingly good controls for people gaming the system because they've got really good data. Problem is, now everybody wants to guide or be guided. Now everybody wants to guide people. So what would normally be there were times where, I've spoken to some people who've done guides regularly, and they're like, yeah, when I turn on my guide thing, if I'm waiting more than 5 minutes for somebody who's interested, it's a slow night. I went and tried to be a guide on Thursday when it went live, and I had my queue open for 6 hours and nobody interested, because they were like, okay, so in the next, 2 weeks, if you have 5 guide sessions for any of these gameplay modes, you'll get a skin for a ship. And they're all really cool looking. But that's like a minimum of 30 minutes is the minimum time to count, is the minimum like play time to count as a guide. So you've got to be like in the game, in a party with that person, active for 30 minutes or more. Otherwise the system doesn't count it. And that's a lot of time to put in over 2 weeks.
It is.
Assuming that you can actually find enough people. And they paired it up with a free fly event, but
hoping that it would generate more people, which it should have.
Which it
almost certainly did.
Yeah, almost certainly did.
But not that many more people.
Yeah, not that many more people. So they changed it overnight because that was a problem. Now, if you use the guide system for any particular thing once, you get the skin, whether you are the guide or the guided. And then they have some other like more hardcore rewards, but that's not really what everybody was jumping in for. But mostly I'm fascinated with the idea of this like crowdsourced guide system that they want to make more. I mean, it's not the easiest thing to find. More's the pity, because it's apparently quite good. But what an interesting way to onboard people into a complex multiplayer game than to have a system built to basically crowdsource that.
I mean, to be fair, that's not that far off from what the EverQuest guide system started out as.
Yeah, that's what I remember is like, it's been since EverQuest that I've seen like actually fleshed out system like this.
It'll be interesting to see how it works actually once the game gets more played or closer to release. Like how functional this remains once the player demand goes up.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of open questions about that, but that they seem actually pretty cognizant of, but it's interesting to watch it sort of evolve. And how do you actually get people to play, or like how do you actually get people to learn when making a tutorial is actively a waste of resources in your alpha game? I mean, once upon a time you'd get a printout in the envelope that came with your alpha discs, but
Yep,
we're a bit away from that. Like I don't actually want to read a 30-page PDF. That's probably out of date already.
So remember the rabbit hole that I talked about falling down last week?
Turns out it got a bit bigger.
Yeah, like I seem to have drug a bunch of people down with me.
I mean, this is how this works, Bell.
Yep, you should know by now.
Yeah.
You're the bus driver.
I mean,
it's been interesting.
And it's a free-to-play game, so,
I figured out how to, create a guild and how to, make a guild hang out. And it doesn't work as well as I expected it to, because I placed a bunch of NPCs, but none of you can see them. Because apparently you have to have reached that point in the story before you can actually see a given NPC. So at some point they will show up for you.
I was going to say, I can see some of them.
Nope. Yep. I tried and none of them were even there.
Yeah. So this game has a bit of a problem with once you get to Act 6, it just starts dumping past systems onto you from all of the leagues. Yes, it happens earlier than that, but like it really accelerates it at season 6 or Act 6.
I mean, I'm pretty sure at least 4 of the systems that I have encountered
it's probably more than that.
It's way more than that.
Are things that were added in leagues. I don't know.
The corrupted areas, the labyrinth, subclasses in general as a concept.
Mm-hmm.
The strong boxes.
Crafting.
The menagerie.
Actual crafting.
Yeah.
I have a mine
dudes now.
You have to click on to open up and get essences. Yeah, those are all things that happen.
Yes. And yet, I just got to Act 6 and they're absolutely even more piled on immediately.
Like it's just all of a sudden.
You think that there's a lot that you've already found, and that's correct, but also there's more.
Oh my.
I mean, because like they keep introducing brand new mechanics for seasons and then deciding to keep a lot of them.
They don't seem to keep all of them, but they do pick and choose at the end of the season which ones to keep. Like the prophecy mechanic, they kept for a while, but it's gone now. But like divination cards are still in.
Yeah, I'm collecting my trading cards. If I get 27 of a particular card, I can have a unique sword. That's gonna happen.
So apparently there's some mechanic where if you're a player of the game, you can pay $1,000 and they will create a divination set after you.
Oh.
Something along those lines. Yeah. So like all of the divination sets someone paid money for.
I knew that somewhat because I saw someone like the Tabula Rasa card is credited to somebody.
And the ones that are just weird, I don't know what they were thinking. Were they just trolling?
Possibly.
It's entirely possible. I hit 40 earlier on my alt, so that's a thing that happened. I have one character I am following a guide on, and another one I'm just kind of winging it, and I am shocked at how well the just winging it character is working, other than the fact that starting a Marauder anything is a mistake. Like, it's fine after a while, but it's probably a mistake unless you know what you're doing.
Yeah, that kind of bugs me. And I think I tried to start a Marauder previously in this game.
Every single time I tried to start a Marauder.
Yeah.
And that is 100% why I bounced. Like, just simple as that. Like, I thought, it's a dude in a diaper. It's the barbarian. I like barbarians. Because, come on. Like, it just looks like a D&D barbarian. Or not D&D, but a Diablo barbarian. Like, and if they're not dudes in diapers, I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, they have the worst start.
Diablo does have the lady in a slightly more than a diaper version.
Yeah, bikini. Like a fur bikini. But like even where Marauder starts on the tree is kind of bad.
No kidding.
Like it's really long way to get to any of the stuff that you probably want. So that's why I just started winging it with what I had access to. And it seems like in this game, if you go hard on anything, you will be fine. I've gone hard on physical damage and two-handers, and it seems fine.
Caveat, you may also want to pick up a defense somewhere.
Yeah.
Somewhere. Doesn't matter what it is. Pick something.
And I want to say you want 135 resist to all. I mean, and that will resist cap you at some point. So like that's a thing that you want before starting maps.
Yeah, but that's way later. That's like end of Act 10. Mm-hmm. The resists are important the whole time, and they get nerfed at the end of Act 5 and the end of Act 10. But like, put some thought into maybe how you survive things. And this could be lifesteal, or this could be regen, or this could be simply having a lot of armor and evade.
Yeah, and a lot of the builds put points, like a lot of points into health regen, and then put life tap on every single ability so they don't have to care about mana.
I've seen that. It's kind of funny to me, honestly.
And then they can run like utility pots for everything but their health pot. Utility pots are really good. They are. It pains me to give up a health pot per se, but after a while, you only really need a health pot and a mana pot. And apparently, they've nerfed Granite several times, and it's still OP.
That's the resist all one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the armor one.
No, that's the armor one. Bismuth is resist all.
Yeah, and that was supposedly really good too. But absolutely use a Quicksilver because that helps.
I was telling Ash and Thalen about my build strategy.
All the blades, all the time?
No, it's actually depressing to me that this works, but at any given juncture, I take the ability that looks the least interesting to me, because that means it's probably good. Thus far, I have a pretty powerful build. Just like, this looks like a thing I don't actually want, taking it.
Well, there's so many things in the tree that just wildly change the way certain things work. Like, on my main, I am running a turrets build, and I took a thing that means I can't do any damage. My turrets can. It increased my turrets damage, but I can apply debuffs with my attacks. So I do still attack things, I just don't actually matter. But my turrets really grind things down. So I'm laying turrets all over the place, and it's entertaining, but like it's a weird gameplay style. There are other ones where like your buffs don't matter anymore. You just inherit the buffs from your minions. So if you're going real hard into a minion build, that might be worth having. There's one I'm building towards right now on my alt where all of my melee stuff just happens to affect my projectiles too. So I can build super into melee focus, but also just throw swords at things. There's so many weird edge cases in that tree, but I kind of think that like following a guide to me is still the way that I would roll for a season open, but also I have a lot more confidence that I can just kind of sit down and cobble together something that works.
Now that I have basic familiarity, I can take a look and say, maybe I want to head in this general direction. Yep. I want to get these things.
There's a thing over here that I probably want. Let's make our way over there in the chain. Grace, you're rolling Minion Manzer, right?
Oh, yes. I have so many minions. It's great. I mean, I'm definitely following a build guide because the skill tree is at least 75% of the reason why I bounce quickly off of this game on every other attempt. And this is great. I am following something. I can learn about the skill tree as I'm following it without having the pain of worrying about I'm going to put points in something that's actually useless and not be able to fix it. But I can still look at the tree and understand why I'm putting those points there, which is nice. And, you know, I have I have swarms of things. I have so many things on my screen at any given time, and it's delightful.
I will say this game would be infinitely better if it just had a respec option.
Yeah,
Because like it takes a really long time to get any number of respecs.
Well,
Yeah.
and respecs are 1 point.
Right.
Yeah.
That's like, and that honestly, like that probably will ultimately burn me out of the game, to be honest. Although I may roll other characters, maybe. But like one of the biggest strengths of Diablo 3 versus Diablo 2 for me was I can switch my build for any reason. Like I can switch my build because I'm bored. Like,
Got a
hey,
new
this
weapon I want to build around. Awesome. I'm gonna build around it.
Yeah. Hey, does this thing even work? I don't know. Let's find out. That's super fun. I can do the same thing over and over and over again because I'm trying different things each time. And I don't know. I don't feel like the emphasis on let's make you make meaningful choices is overplayed.
Agreed.
And I mean, they are saying similar things for Diablo 4 too, so that's kind of annoying as well.
Yeah, like I don't. It's one of those things that's like it feels like old game design, like old outdated game design ethos.
Like the previous play through the game three times system, which they have gone away from, but also had for a long time.
But Tam, choices are supposed to be thoughtful and impactful, and thus, meaningful. They're not meaningful if you can just change them.
I do like that you can change active skills basically whenever.
Yeah.
Because provided you're building toward like, hey, I'm using bow attacks, so let me try out all these various different bow attacks.
Yeah, being able to just like swap gems in and out and try different things, and so he's like, is this something that maybe I want to use more, or like, try and find support gems for it. Like
I think on some level they understood that there was a flaw in the design, and I wonder if there's some technological debt that is keeping them from just opening it wide open right now.
I'm pretty
They
sure it's less
have-
tech debt and more fan.
But
That
Yeah,
but I mean,
they
like,
have their
everything.
fan base, and the fan base would be up in arms.
So there's a bunch of systems that you've not interacted with yet, and all of those you could just change on the fly at will.
Well, yeah, but they were probably like that from the point that they went into the game.
They were like that from the point they went into the game.
Yeah, see.
So yeah, like it does make me wonder, like if they had it all over to do, would they design it slightly different?
I mean, I guess we'll see with Path of Exile 2.
I'm a little unclear how much of a sequel this is intended to be.
Exactly. That's the only thing that
impression
concerns
it's
me there.
Mostly meant to be a replacement, yeah.
See, it's advertised two different ways. It is advertised as a whole new game, but it's also been advertised as Path of Exile 4.0 and 7 more chapters. So I don't know. Like, I don't know which way they're going with it. I don't know if it's a whole new game or if it's just more content.
I mean, it's a new 7-act storyline available alongside the original Path of Exile 1 campaign. Both lead to the same shared endgame.
That
Okay.
part seems concerning.
Yeah, and honestly, like, that's kind of one of the things that it does make me worry about the total longevity of this for me personally is right now each season or league as they call them, you basically level through playing the game again. Whereas in Diablo 3, over time we've figured out fast ways to level that didn't involve just repeating the story. And that was a far superior experience to having to just repeat the story.
Yeah, they gave us adventure mode and rifts, and so you can just go in and murder things and not have to worry about, finding the
If I remember
MacGuffin
correctly,
for the person.
Rifts used to require you to be max level when they first went in.
But
I
that
think they did.
changed over time.
Yes.
So, and that's the only thing that worries me is like, I think I will love maps, but it is a long route to get from level 1 to maps, though I'm getting faster.
I was going to say, I've now taken 3 characters through Act 1, and it is way faster if you know what you're doing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like I definitely know what I'm doing more than I did. And, cause like, I don't know, I want to say Friday is when I started playing this character really. and I'm already 42. So maybe that's not a big deal. Maybe given subsequent seasons, I will just continue to level faster. But I mean, like that is kind of a concern because I think leveling my way through the same content over and over and over and over is gonna get a little old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to some extent, like a lot of the reason why the whole I'm going to follow a build and know that I can't reset this character doesn't bother me more than it would normally is I've already become indoctrinated into the I only play seasons in Diablo 3 mentality. So I can't see really devoting much time to a forever character in this game. I will probably continue to restart new ones every time a season comes out. But it would be nice if you decided to shift gears halfway through, that it's not an overwhelming process. And then there's the whole trading system, which is madness. And Ash is engaged with it. I have refused to.
I have also refused.
Is it just the barter system?
It is easier than dealing with Warframe.
Basically, nothing in this game binds. Everything is sellable to other players, but there's no official system for doing it. So the players have built.
Except there is, like, players didn't build this. It's built into the site, built into the actual Path of Exile site.
The auction site is built in? Oh, okay. I thought that was a third-party site.
There is also a third-party site, but guess where it's pulling its data from?
Okay.
So, like, you can post things from your actual stash through their site.
But only if you've paid to make your stash tabs, like, colored, right?
Yes. Only if you paid to make colorful stash tags.
AKA the deluxe ones or whatever.
Premium ones.
Yeah, because I was looking at that as like, oh, I can give them a couple of bucks and I get to make one stash tab have a pretty color and rename it. That doesn't seem like a good deal. But also,
the actual reason to do this is to list it as
yeah.
public. Yeah, because you need to do that first. And I think their API or whatever it is definitely pulling from that, because it will tell you in the whisper that it generates, it will tell the person you're whispering where in their stash tabs it is exactly.
I mean, and that's the other part of this is there's no currency, so people have made up a currency and decided that chaos orbs are what we trade for, or exalted orbs.
I mean, they are a currency. They're all currencies. There's a currency tab that they go into.
This game has more currencies than mobile games.
It's just that the currencies aren't just used for buying and selling. They do a thing.
Right. They're all functional items.
Also, I have some news for you about the many additional systems that continue unlocking in later chapters.
I have I bought a currency stash tab because there's a lot of currencies.
So you can see that this has like 30 some currencies on the first page, and then an additional page for exotic currencies.
Exotic, yeah. There's a whole separate page for exotic currencies that I haven't gotten anything that goes in there yet.
Well, and that also doesn't actually count all of the currencies and doodads that go along with some of the newer systems, which have their own stash tabs that you can buy.
That seems kind of dumb, honestly.
Yeah, so like, do you like archaeology? Do you want to find artifacts with explosives? There's a whole system with its own 8 currencies or something like that.
Is that the mine that I just unlocked?
No.
You can get dynamite and like blow. There's a separate thing where you're blowing stuff up for fun and profit. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Because I know you can make dynamite for the mine and blow stuff up.
You get artifact fragments that you can use to gamble on items, and the items are for the most part either a yellow or a unique. I've not pulled a blue from there yet. I don't know if it's possible, but I do know people farm specific ones trying to get uniques. Then there's an expedition system where you're like exploring a temple, and I don't fully understand how to do that one other than the intro mission that I got. So I think I'll maybe encounter that later. Then there's heists. Heists are just a bad idea, but they're a delightful bad idea.
They're such a wonderful bad idea. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was really confused about halfway through, but I was here for it. It was a lot of fun, and I really want to try it with more than just me in my party.
As I've gotten higher, I've gotten more contracts for heists. They'll start dropping, and I know in maps they drop a lot. I think there's systems that I've yet to unlock as well. I think I'm on Act 8, and I did not realize that the original game ended at Act 3, and it is noticeable because like the content after Act 3 is, I don't know, I feel much better built than the content for the first 3 acts. Jimling Queen is my favorite NPC.
Not a cockroach.
She's delightful.
I also like Einhar.
Einhar is a handful.
Mm.
We also
It's
discover
just-
you're playing multiplayer. He follows one particular person around, so if the other person
really?
finds the thing,
Oh my god.
they're
That
stuck at
sounds miserable.
1 health while trying
Yes.
to find it.
That
I had to
sounds
go running back
miserable.
to Ash, who had the person following him.
Like at first I thought, oh, well, this is cool. This is just like a minion that'll follow me around. No, not really. He only shows up when there's beasts to be captured.
I mean, he has other stuff to be doing. There's not beasts around.
If you're not beast, we are best friends until we slaughter you.
He's definitely a handful. Yes.
So the funniest thing is like once you open up multiple NPCs and place them in your hideout, you can ask them what they think of the other NPCs. Everyone has an opinion on Einhar,
That they do.
especially Nico, the dude in the mine.
Yeah,
I don't
no,
know, like
I just finished helping him. He seems questionable.
he's a good soul.
Are you sure?
I think so. Like he seems like a good person. I mean, I question if anybody's really a good person in this game.
I mean, there is a lower bound because Dominus and the Templars exist. So most people we interact with are better than that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean they're better than most of the people that I've interacted with.
Yeah, I mean it's fellow exiles who are also here because they pissed off Dominus, which good for them. Or people from various groups here who hate the Templars because Templars, they suck. Like we can all agree on that, if nothing
much.
else.
Well, and there's honestly like some NPCs that redeem themselves over time. There's other ones that get worse. Like it's a really interesting world. Like
running into Fairgraves for a second time was highly entertaining.
yeah.
I don't know if
That
I'll be
definitely
seeing
got me
him.
off guard.
I don't know that if I'll be seeing him again. I kind of hope I do.
One of the things that cracks me up is there's absolutely versions of enemies in this game that are just enemies from Diablo, but oftentimes the version from here is kind of worse. Like the necromancers are just the shaman from the fallen / fiend / whatever's, but they can raise so much more.
Yeah.
On the other hand, there's some mob in this game. I don't know what it's called, but it looks exactly like the horrible dog things that explode with acid in Diablo. And in this game, they don't do anything like that. But I constantly run away from them every time I kill them because it has been just ingrained that you don't want to stand near that.
Well, the tree dudes that drop the spores are my new bane. I hate those things.
Yeah, those things are awful.
And the Waller mechanic in this game is so much worse than it is in Diablo. Because only certain movement abilities will get you out of it.
Yeah, luckily I have my blink arrow. That works. Because
That
I can shoot an arrow at an arc.
You can leap over it. You can't dash through it.
You can blink through it, though.
You can blink through it. Then there's basically an exact copy of Butcher. Like, you're not telling me that the Brute is it Brute? Is that what it's called?
I couldn't tell you his name because his name is mentally replaced for me with Butcher.
I think it's Bruticus or Brutus or something like
I think
that.
it's Brutus, yeah.
I legitimately cannot remember the name of anybody in this game.
But it is absolutely just the Butcher. Like, it is so the Butcher.
You probably remember one name. Piety, probably.
What?
Piety?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's fair. I was going to say the only proper noun that I can immediately call to mind is Spectral Helix.
It's a good one.
There's part of me that wonders if there's some sort of allegory taking place, since this was developed by a New Zealand company, and you have a small, well-off island and a large island that is largely just a place where exiles go.
I never really thought about it that way, but the fact the studio is based in New Zealand does sort of suggest some things.
I mean, like I would think that maybe Oriath is New Zealand and Rayclast is Australia.
Also gives the barbarian a bit of new light, or marauder, whatever you call it.
Man in diaper. I like the other thing that I would love to see happen in a second game that I don't think is going to happen is I would love to have any kind of agency over what my character looks like.
Yes.
I'm not a fan of basically like, okay, I'm gonna play the old dude, or I'm gonna play the little girl. Or
this game was definitely designed for people who didn't like Diablo 3 and wanted to play more Diablo 2.
Yes.
And while it has moved away from that gradually, its roots show a lot.
Man, there's a lot of things like that. Hey, we didn't. It's the late like early 2000s, and there was an old thing that got updated, and we don't like it. We want to stick with the old thing. Here's a new old thing
with Path in the name.
Yeah. I mean, if the trend keeps, that means that Path of Exile 2 will be
incredibly awesome and amazing.
Yeah.
The thing that I find most interesting is the hardcore trader side of the community and the people who make decisions exclusively just to make them profitable, and the sheer number of how to make money in this game. And they don't really mean money. They mean bartered items, but
there is no money.
There's no way to cash out, but there's a lot of effort spent into trying to optimize getting the best gear to sell, to get the currency, to buy other things, to flip and sell.
I mean, making the number go up. That's,
That's just not like a thing that I've encountered in quite the same way. Like WoW sellers, sure. Like people who flipped the auction house and all that. That was auction house PvP was absolutely a thing.
You have played FF14, right?
Right.
I'm just saying.
But the FF14 auction house system is a race to the bottom. Like it is not a stable economy. Like I went through this while I was leveling my trade skills, and I was farming stuff in the diadem, and every day the price that I could get from the things that I farmed in the diadem was a little bit cheaper. Like every single day, it was just a little bit. And over time, it was just a downward trend to the bottom. And you can kind of watch that trajectory with like all the things that once had value. You can pick up, pets that used to be terribly valuable now for pretty cheap. And it's not that like they don't still have value, but they don't hold the value they once did. So it's been interesting to watch different games and how their economies shake out. Like WoW is a purely inflationary economy. Everything costs more over time because more gold is accumulated. So everything just costs more because everyone has more gold to spend. Guild Wars 2
just getting started.
Guild Wars 2 seems to be like pretty stationary. Like you can almost set a clock to the economy in Guild Wars 2. This one, I don't know how to suss it out yet.
I mean, the important and relevant thing is that it basically resets every season.
Yeah. So it has ebbs and flows every season to where the things that people need for key builds are super expensive at start and then get cheaper as the season goes and people do more maps and stuff like that.
But it has a feeling, I mean, obviously this is a free-to-play game, but the economy in-game has the feeling of a free-to-play game in the sense that there's some sort of agreed-upon currency, but there's so many different currencies and uses for them that it feels weirdly removed from the effort that went in to obtain it.
Right.
In the same way that, the in-game, real money currency is a step removed from the real money. Although I do appreciate, I think this is the first game I've played in a long time where it's like, oh, the real money currency actually kind of aligns to the dollar value in a very straightforward way. I was not expecting that and appreciated it.
That's a whole other weird thing is like, for the most part, people seem to be more than happy to throw money at this game.
Well, that depends on what part of the internet you're on.
I guess. I mean,
I have seen a really large number of people wearing fancy spell effects.
I have seen that.
Yeah, so like I feel like there's a strict divide there where there are people that play Path of Exile that are screw you, I don't want to pay any money to play games ever. Like that is absolutely a community I've seen. Like screw you, this is a free game, I'm going to play it and I don't want to ever give you any money. And then there's a lot of people that just don't give a shit and throw money at buying tabs and stuff and pretty costumes.
There is absolutely a, like, I don't even know that it's just in games, but it's like paying for things is against my ethos.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I don't know where this, I mean, okay, there's always been freeloaders
It started with Napster. I can tell you exactly when it started.
I mean, okay, but I had an eye patch long before Napster.
No, I mean, have you ever had that relative who just returned everything to the store, over couponed everything? Like this goes back well before Napster. Yeah. This is like part of the human condition.
There is a cheapskate gene, and some people have it. But like, I don't like spending money. Like, it's a thing. I don't like spending money on things, and if I can get it cheap, I'll get it cheap. But at the same time, like, if I spend enough time in a game, I feel like I owe the people that built the game something.
Well, and I have a very, I don't know, contrarian approach to spending real money in games sometimes. So in a game where I have paid for the box or I am paying a subscription, I'm going to be incredibly angry if I feel like I need to pay any additional real money for anything else in that game, and will probably try to avoid it like the plague. But in a game like Path of Exile, that, like, hey, the whole game is free. None of this costs me anything. I have access to all of these ridiculous, stupid systems, and I don't have to pay anything for it. Then all of a sudden, I'm happy to throw them some money. Like, I will buy a stupid pet or whatever, like buy some stash tabs because I want to throw money their way for actually putting together a good game.
Yeah, I mean, I've given them $20 so far, and I'm still pretty far away from, the total that I spent on Diablo 3. So I feel like I can, justify buying some more stash tabs if I need to.
Yeah, I mean, my general reasoning behind a purchase is like, do I like this enough that I would have bought it? I mean, it's not just do I like this enough, but like, have I played this in such a way that I would have bought it if it were a, complete game, and then on like a box price game, and then like also a certain amount of like, what do I owe the developers for the time that I've put into it?
Yeah. Well, and also, I would like to signal, hey, I like this. Please keep doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like, it's really weird because there are some games, the amount that I'm happy to spend on a game varies enormously. Hello, I play Star Citizen. But also, like, I sometimes find myself frustrated because I'm like, I wish I could pay more for some games. Like, there are some games where I'm just like, I don't.
Vampire Survivors should not cost $3.
Yeah, like I've gotten so much out of Grindstone that I want to give them more money. I just don't know how. Like, short of looking up their dev team and PayPaling them. which I've done, by the way. You can do that with some indie developers, and they are surprised, but not sad about it.
Well, and what's weird, though, is I guess to me, it feels like the MTX is less needed in this game, even though, like, the stash tabs are phenomenal. I could be real ruthless about what I'm picking up and saving and not store anything, but it would not be as fun, but I also don't feel like I would be at a massive disadvantage without stash tabs. I don't know. Especially if I were
still have
following
not
a guide.
overflowed what would fit in the base stash tabs. And I appreciate the currency stash tab entirely for its convenience.
Yes, same.
It's the way it organizes things.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of stuff that I am saving in part in case I want to roll an alt and not because I needed it for my main character. And if I were super laser focused on only my main character, I wouldn't have needed stash tabs at this point.
That's the other thing is, like, I do value that convenience factor. It's why I like storage expanders more than extra bank tabs in Guild Wars 2.
Yep.
Even though technically you can fit more of most relevant things in a bank expansion.
God, I hate storing them in the bank, though.
Yes, I know. Me too.
Like, there's an auto deposit system for a reason. I just want to put them there. And it always makes me super sad when it's full, because now I think Elderwood is currently full. So I have a stack of Elderwood in my inventory.
That has never been a problem. Not never been a long-term problem for me, because if I fill up on Elderwood or Mithril, guess what's getting made?
Kegs.
It's the curio time.
Kegs.
I don't have any
Our guild
Elderwood
needs
anymore.
Kegs.
Look, I just finished crafting the second stage of a legendary staff. I do not have Elderwood.
I have plenty of Elderwood. Do we need it in the bank? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, we do. We do. In fact,
We do?
need it. We need it for kegs. We also need glass for mugs.
Yeah, or piles of sand to make the glass.
That's a whole mess that I'm not going to go through right now. That involves doing a lot of Reba.
I mean, or just going to dry top.
I was gonna say it also drops.
I hate dry top, Thalen. I hate dry top so much.
But that's where the quartz is. Go to dry top. You mine your quartz for the day. You get some sand while you're there.
Yes. But yeah, so like, okay, it's amazing what a difference it has made with Path of Exile for me, because like I had probably put in a dozen hours into the game prior to this, and it's me repeatedly bouncing. And now I've got, I don't know, like 65 hours or so in the game.
Yeah, I absolutely have tried and bounced, I don't know, at least 6 or 8 times. Just like probably once a year. I just have it on my machine and I look at it and go, I should like this game. And
Yeah,
then
like
I
on
play
paper,
it,
this should be a game for me.
right,
Once
play
upon a
it for an
time.
hour and then it doesn't work.
Once upon a time, we did the Game of the Month show on Diablo 2. I do not like Diablo 2 anymore,
No,
as
I
it
don't
turns
either.
out.
I don't even like I had picked up the Diablo Resurrected Edition long before the issues with Blizzard happened, and I did try and play it when it came out, and like even the better, prettier version is still too slow paced for me.
And when we did that, I decided I was done very early trying to play Diablo 2 and started to play this instead, and eventually bounced. But like, I saw some things that I liked, and now I am getting to see some of the depth of those things.
It's a game that has doubled down on complexity, and it makes it very hard for anyone who is not already bought in to get in.
Yes.
Yeah, like this was a
It's a
complex
problem.
game from the beginning, and it's just gotten more and more complex over the years.
The 10 years since it's been officially out.
Yeah.
Well, and like some of the league mechanics are actively hostile to players, because the whole explosions archaeology thing that we were talking about is now, I think, in Act 6.
Yes.
But originally it was, so Twilight Strand is the first map that you end up on, and then there's Lion's Eye Watch, and then there's whatever the next map is. And
The
I can't
Coast.
think- the Coast. As soon as you zoned out of Lion's Eye into the Coast, there was this minefield for you to do archaeology, and like when you set off the bombs, every explosion summons huge packs of things to fight. And this was like something you were introduced at like level 2. There's no way you can survive at level 2. At least not as a Marauder. Marauders start kind of weak.
They start with a terrible, terrible skill. Near their starting passive location is some life and armor, and also some melee damage.
Yeah. So yeah, like, I mean, I remember starting in that, whatever season introduced that, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. No, this is bad news. This is, am I going to have to do this all the time? I mean, it totally makes sense why the conventional advice is don't start a melee anything.
Define melee, because my Marauder is no longer, I mean, okay, I am a melee character in that I swing a melee weapon at things.
I mean, my Marauder now throws weapons at things.
I mean, mine is using Whirlwind. I mean, but I am not doing damage. I'm barely doing damage. This Scorpion following behind me is doing all of the damage in my build.
I mean, my big hope for Path of Exile 2 is that they can somehow make this really interesting game a little more approachable. I mean, not having gem slots on items anymore is going to be a huge step forward. I mean, spells or gems will have their own slots for support gems.
I mean, I have to say, the first however many times I tried and bounced, that was definitely a barrier, but also on this attempt, that has now become the least of my many worries about how this game works.
I mean, I still don't have enough of the right slots on either of the characters I'm playing. I have a workable build, but like I could be doing so much better if I had just the right slot combination. I mean, so that's a thing for me, but it's kind of hard to find the right combination of green and red on a piece of gear.
Yep. I mean, eventually you can make it yourself.
Yep.
There's also the approach of starting with an orb of a white piece that is appropriately evasion and armor, and just going for it with an orb of binding.
Anyway, I'm impressed with the game so far. I'm kind of looking forward to the next seasonal start, which is in August, and trying to see what the seasonal start is like, running up from fresh with everybody running up from fresh.
Yeah, I'm hoping it will be a good replacement for our D3 season starts.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, it's going to be we're going to be significantly more clueless than we are when those come around.
But it could be fun.
Yeah, it's part of the fun.
Indeed, I think it would be.
One other note that I mentioned before the show, but also like, hey, it's one of these games that I can actually play with my friends without being in physical pain.
It has controller support on PC.
Yeah.
Why do other games not have this?
Which I think, honestly, is something that's not been around for a really long time. Like, I think it's
been a few years.
New thing. Okay.
It's
been around longer than 10X have.
Yeah, it is 100% the difference. I think I mentioned that, like, I played Diablo 3 on Switch, and I was like, oh, this game's really fun. Too bad nobody is playing it here, so it's like, well, all right.
It is frustrating because, like, I had that same feeling with Diablo 3 on Switch. And honestly, like, to some extent, part of why I enjoyed Diablo Immortal as much as I did is it was really fun with a controller.
It's a really... This is a genre I really enjoy playing with a controller. I mean, in that I can actually engage with it.
Right.
Because, like, I didn't actually really like Diablo 2, and that was and for a bunch of reasons that came up when we were talking about it. But, like, I like the concept. I devoured the original Diablo. There's a lot of, I mean, I grew up with Baldur's Gate games, so isometric RPG that happens in real time is up my alley, although I don't think that those are necessarily great examples of the genre. And certainly a different game than these, but I can actually play this one. Accessibility controls. I don't get an RSI after 30 minutes.
Well, and I never understood why they never patched in controller support for Diablo 3 on the PC.
I understand but disagree.
To some extent, it's a lot of PC Master Race bullshit.
Yes.
Because they felt they had to dumb their game down to make it playable on a controller. And I have seen too many people play hyper competitive games on a controller to believe that nonsense. And it's all about player preference. It's not about skill. Controller players are not worse than mouse and keyboard players. Games like Destiny that have blended both, and both are competitive. Like, there may be some metas that are better on a controller or better on a mouse and keyboard, but it's not that one is superior to the other. So if you want to play with a mouse and keyboard, awesome. If you want to play with a controller, awesome. Make them equivalent experiences. Like, it would still improve that game greatly if they added mouse or they added controller to it, especially after seeing how well it worked in Diablo Immortal. Yep.
And the console versions of Diablo 3.
Yeah, honestly, there's stuff that's in the console versions that I'd like to have on mouse and keyboard. The way that it stores
like a dodge
gear. And a dodge, yes. Everything's better with a dodge.
It's not quite double jump, but I'll take it, I guess.
Anyway, and also, like, at some point, I need to try Last Epoch again because I've heard it's getting better, but I still have a philosophical debate with the way that game controls.
Did they ever... Wasn't that argument we had with them about, like, why they should add controller support and they disagreed or something?
Yes, they did. They disagree with controller support. They disagree with the ability to have click and move on the same button.
Don't you not even do that anymore?
I don't even do that anymore. Like, yeah, exactly. That's what I realized when we were talking about that before the show. I use force move. I don't ever click my left mouse button, so I use it for attacks now, like for casting things. I steer while holding down the W key and moving my mouse. So yeah, maybe I could make that game control like that. I don't know. Anyway, any final thoughts?
Marauder should start closer to some minion damage nodes. Anything. I take anything.
Marauder should have a complete ground up rework.
They have multiple times. Like, I took a look at some previous versions of the skill tree. They've reworked the Marauder section several times.
Oh no.
They maybe still need to do it. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the show. Maybe dust out games that you've bounced off previously. Maybe a different frame of reference will change your opinion of them. It did for me with Path of Exile and Guild Wars 2. So anyway,
Star Citizen is having a free fly for the next 2 weeks. If you are interested, like, genuinely ping me, because I'm more than happy to show people the ropes. Help me get cool skins.
It seems like a cool game.
Well, hopefully you enjoy the show, and we will see you again next week. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See you.